I just love to walk up onto stage with music like that. What I love to walk into is the atmosphere we create, the state of consciousness we're in after hearing beautiful music well performed with meaning. I'm Kim Kaiser, a minister here at the center, and this is the first Sunday of the month. Our theme of the month for June is accountability. And the talk title, which is being spoken about at many centers throughout the country, is The Courage to Do the Right Thing. So I just want to begin with laying out the territory and then exploring that territory. The very first thing to have the courage to do the right thing is to know, as Chris just sang, to know who you really are. And then based on that, you can know what the right thing to do is. But there's a third step, I would say, and this is where the courage comes. Because you have to have the courage to act like you really are what you are. So, let's begin. Last Christmas Eve, I received an early Christmas gift. I had come down here to the Christmas Eve candle lighting service. I was enjoying that. And then, about 2 weeks later, I got a call from a bank in Sebastopol saying, someone was just in here attempting to cash a check in your name. I said, oh my goodness, I wonder what that's about. And then I discovered that the new passport that I was expecting had been delivered to the house that very Christmas Eve. In fact, they had the right time. It was just after I left for the candle lighting service. And then, you guessed it, I began to receive notices from stores and credit cards that I had been all over the country, apparently, charging like mad, making new accounts. In fact, Southern California, and I remember, and then Iowa, of all places. Apparently, there's some nice things in the Nordstrom in Iowa, Ames, Iowa. Anyway, somebody has them. Now, all of this I took care of over the following months. And there was no consequence for Joyce or for me. But, it was things to do. Along the way, though, I became aware of doing something that actually I think we're all doing all the time these days. I had to establish what my true identity was again and again. Who is this person that is attempting to get a credit card or disputing a charge, etc.? So you know all the questions. What's your mother's maiden name, right? Some of my favorites are, what's your high school mascot? And where did you and your spouse meet? But I'm not going to tell you so that you won't meet. And on, right? I experienced how we are asked to prove who we are every day, again and again. And that activity actually was the gift. The gift was that this event woke me to the truth that I need to take real steps in the world to secure my identity, to make sure it's safe, not under attack, not being stolen. And it was much easier than I thought to steal my identity. And if you think about it, and a lot of commentators are saying this now, the biggest issue facing us with the internet today, the World Wide Web, is identity. Knowing who you're talking to, knowing what you're dealing with. We have to take active steps to make sure our identity is secure. And this is true in spirituality as well. Because there's an even deeper spiritual teaching that I came to understand through this event. It's that, in fact, we are regularly stealing our own identity. It's us that is taking away our true identity by listening to what others say about us or about people like us. Then by repeatedly claiming that identity, telling ourselves that's who we are, based on what we've been told and come to believe. We use our imaginations to create an imaginary identity, and we see it whenever we look at ourselves. You know, we all have our favorite spiritual teachers. I'm sure you have yours. But one of mine is Mark Twain, and he offers some good guidance about this imaginary identity that we create. He said, you can't depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus. Now, he's saying this in the 19th century. But this is, in fact, what neurocognitive science is showing us again and again and again. What you think is going on is, in fact, what you see or don't see. Who are you really? Who am I really? What is my true identity? I need to get clear about that. And Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, encouraged us to regularly reclaim our identity, to secure our identity by speaking affirmations about who and what we are, so that we can hear it again and again, so that we can feel it again and again. In our textbook, Science of Mind, he wrote an affirmation for us to say so we don't forget this truth. He wrote, I am a center in the divine mind, a point of God-conscious life, truth, and action. My affairs are divinely guided and guarded into right action, into correct results. Everything I do, say, or think is stimulated by the truth. Look at what he's saying. He's saying that you and I are a center in the divine mind. Imagine this, there's one mind, and it knows itself in various centers. You and I are that. And that we are a point in that divine mind, which is conscious of God, of truth. You're at the center of this mind. You always have been and you always will be. Whatever form you're currently taking, what you are is the divine mind knowing itself. You are God-conscious life, and life, all life, is by its very nature conscious of its source, what we're calling God here. And I have to say, in this tradition we use God or Spirit, or we can use Buddha or Allah. We can call it reality itself. Ernest Holmes encouraged us to say, let's not give it any name. Just we're talking about the one thing that really is, and let's call it it. Whatever it is, that's what we're talking about. Don't let the names confuse you. Knowing these truths is the first and most fundamental step in turning my awareness to my true identity. We must begin to question what we have believed and replace it with a new image of ourselves. We have to secure our foundation in a new and in our real identity. So stopping to remember and to reaffirm who you actually are is what we must do before we attempt to do anything. When we do that, then we can begin to address the second question for today. How to know what the right thing to do actually is. Not just have the courage to do it, but to know what is right to do, what is in line with truth. This is the big question. What's the right thing to do regarding finding the real facts in a world of alternate facts? Working with the difficult relationships in your life, working with yourself. What is it we are to do, and how do we go about doing it? How can we know what the right thing is? So Ernest is saying in this slide, everything you do is stimulated by truth. That's hard to understand until you hear perhaps this teaching from A Course in Miracles, which says that every action of every person is an act of love or a call for love. Love is what's stimulating us to do everything, either noticing its absence or calling for it to be more present in our life, to express it. Love equals truth equals spirit equals God. That's what we say. Every action you make is the result of truth being felt, the result of love being felt. And based on that, that's where God's action occurs in the world, because we are the ones responding to the touch of the divine and delivering that touch, expressing, radiating that touch in our activities. And as you feel its touch, if you feel its divine guidance, you are continually guided and guarded into right action and experience the correct results. Ernest Holmes continues on to describe how this occurs. This spirit, love, animates everything that I do, say, or think. Ideas come to me daily, and these ideas are divine ideas. They direct me and sustain me without effort. I am continuously directed. I am compelled to do the right thing at the right time, to say the right word at the right time, to follow the right course at all times. Stop a moment and feel what it would be like to live in that world. It is the actual world. It is actually what you are. It is what's actually going on right now. Feel what that is like when you know that this is what's going on. Think of it. Everything you do and say is stimulated by spirit, by love, by truth. And you are receiving divine ideas daily, moment by moment. You are directed and sustained in every moment. You are compelled to do the right thing at the right time. But unless you know this consciously and remember to turn to spirit in every activity, you will attempt to direct yourself. You will imagine that you have no source which is continually delivering you the information, the feeling, the activity, the ability that you need, and you will try and do it on your own. And you will be fooled when you do that. And you'll be fooled by a persistent mistake that we make when we attempt to determine it for ourselves. This mistake is described in the book of the month, Crucial Accountability. It's a book really about having those difficult conversations at work, at home, those conversations in relationships that are put off again and again, the ones that you'd rather be silent about, the ones that you either take the choice of being silent and being violent in that silence, or actually talking, bringing it up. And the subtitle of this book is Tools for Resolving Violated Expectations, Broken Commitments, and Bad Behavior. That pretty much covers a lot. The authors say, assuming that others do contrary things because it's in their makeup, or they actually enjoy doing them, and then ignoring any other potential motivational forces is a mistake. Psychologists classify this mistake as an attribution error. And because it happens so consistently across people, times, and places, it gets a name all its own. It's called the fundamental attribution error. Usually we make this mistake about other people, and we tell stories about them based on this mistaken view. We tell stories, we have feelings, we act based on this mistaken view. And we sincerely believe that the stories are true because we have a lot of evidence to prove it. This is where Mark Twain comes to our aid again. It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. That's a very interesting thing to think about. We're going to be looking at now, what do we know for sure? And how do we know for sure that that's so? This question is coming up again and again as we practice spirituality. We typically apply the fundamental attribution error to other people, but just as often, we make the fundamental attribution error about ourselves. We tell ourselves that this is just the way we are. We do things that aren't what we feel we should do, and even enjoy doing them. Being just a little contrary is a way of expressing our independence and our ability to be independent, not just go along with what everyone else is doing. In fact, much of our bonding with each other is self-deprecating humor. And we describe ourselves that way so that others can feel comfortable in our presence. This book of the month describes a group of highly effective individuals, people who are supervisors at their workplace, and those who are really good with difficult relationships. They successfully handle these conversations regularly. And this book is a study of what they do. And these people are called positive deviants. So I want to say right away, if you're practicing the science of mind, you are a positive deviant. And I congratulate you on it. Positive deviants. Individuals who routinely found a way to hold others accountable, and they did so in a manner that not only solved the problem, but also improved their relationship. They found a way to be both honest and respectful, and rarely had to invoke their formal authority to get things done. Their fundamental approach to any difficult interaction, as the authors describe it, is based on asking themselves this humanizing question, they call it. Instead of, what's the matter with that person? Ask, why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person do that? They look for the reasons behind the behavior, and they say that most often problems with behavior are actually difficulties with either motivation. Are people actually motivated to do what it is we're talking about? And ability. Do they have the ability to do what it is we're talking about? But fundamentally, they have a deep respect for the people they're working with, even when their behavior is off base. Spiritual practice requires you to be a positive deviant, both in your view of others and in your view of yourself. Don't let your story about their behavior become the truth about them. Look for the larger picture. Don't let your story about your behavior become the truth about you. Look for the larger picture. Let's be clear, though. This book is about resolving bad behaviors, not ignoring or enduring them. It's not about letting bad behavior going on, but specifically addressing it. And the question always is, are you going to go silent, or are you going to have the courage to have the conversation? And this book is about a practical approach that has successfully worked again and again and again to resolve difficult issues. And wonderfully enough, this very practical approach is actually a spiritual approach. And both require courage. Which brings us to the larger question about courage. Why does doing the right thing require courage? Because it calls you into being something more than you have ever thought of yourself being. Not just your aspirations. This is far beyond what you have thought you're capable of. You are called into being something consciously that is far beyond what you could have imagined when you thought you were a limited human being. It requires courage to give up your familiar and comfortable picture of yourself, that picture of you being limited, powerless, and alone, and a limited being living in a world of living beings, of limited beings. What you really are is the current expression of a living divine presence. Right now. You are the divine one, expressing itself, taking form as you, as everyone in this room, in every moment, has always done this, will always do this. This one being that we call God is here right now, in this room, in you, as you. This is our true identity. And we must have the courage to actually claim it, to actually challenge those beliefs that you may have that say, this could never be true of me. I've got all this history to prove it. But if you are allowing that belief to go unchallenged or at least unquestioned, then you are trapped. Trapped from actually experiencing what's actually going on anyway. You have to have the courage to say, God is here now, as me, as everyone. The courage to say that God is all there is to me, all there is to everyone. The courage to say that because of my divine nature, there's unlimited power in what I say, do, and think. Ernest writes, there is a power in this word I speak because it is of the truth and it is the truth. There is perfect and continuous right action in my life and my affairs. All belief in wrong action is dispelled and made negative. Right action alone has power, and right action is power, and power is God, the living Spirit Almighty. We often talk about forgiveness in traditions like this, in spiritual living, because it is what frees us from the stories we tell about others and ourselves. But as one spiritual teacher said, the essence of forgiveness is simply the willingness to change your mind. And that willingness, by the way, is not about changing my idea about you or that person or somebody else. It's changing my idea about who I am. It's changing my idea of I am this limited mind, appreciating an infinite being, to actually being that infinite one. The Bible speaks of it this way. It says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." And in Buddhism, when you are ordained as a teacher, you are said to have the mind of the original Buddha, that one. In this tradition, we let God's mind be our mind by claiming it and seeking to hear its continuous message within. We let go of this idea that we have this limited mind, and we lean into God's mind and act from there. Our question is not, what am I to do? Can I do it? But what can I receive? Declaring and claiming who and what we really are requires the greatest courage. And it's only after claiming who we are that, as I've been saying, we can be guided, we can hear the truth that is guiding us into right action, and we can hear it clearly, and we reclaim our true power. Can you and I be positive deviants and confront worldly power with honesty and respect? Can we do that being aware of the divine power which lives in us, in our words and actions? Can we be that divine presence in the world right now? Can we say no to untruthful actions, not objecting or in conflict with them, but as a statement of truth, saying what you are doing is not informed by truth. It is a lie, and I will not honor or participate in it, nor will I tell a story about it. Of course, we're all free to choose. We're all free to be a deviant or not. But as you can see, we're being asked to question, to move beyond what we know for sure, and to begin to listen and hear and feel, because we feel love and we respond to truth, to feel that surging, moving through us. So if you'll join me now in a treatment, as I talk about this very truth and confirm our being and our ability. So if you're comfortable, close your eyes as I acknowledge the Divine One being here and now, knowing that everything that we seek that could be sought is here and now. Knowing that this Divine One includes everyone, and it is not capable of splitting itself up into parts because it's one. So wherever it is, all of it is, and it is all of it in each one here. We are its activity, we are its life, we are it, and it is so much more. So I speak this word in that awareness. I accept that we are, each of us, now knowing ourselves in a new way, that a reasonable doubt has been raised about what we know for sure. And we're willing to question and allow that the Divine One that is actually here, is actually acting within each one here, and allowing it to be heard, felt, and allowing it to inspire, stimulate us into right action. We are guided and guarded by it in everything we do. It loves its life as you and me. I am so grateful for this awareness. I am grateful to know that this is the truth. Because knowing this truth liberates me, frees me from a life of limit and powerlessness. I give thanks for this, and I release this word now, knowing that it is being done by that one, the only one who does anything, who does the right thing always, through and as me. And I simply say, and so it is.